Hi, everyone. This is Sean Orleans welcoming you to another stay at home edition of Inside Anarchy. What did your parents think of you wanting to be a wrestler and training and starting out?
Well, I lost my stepfather at an early age to smoking. He had lung cancer. Ironically, when I was like 10 or 11, I used to live in Massachusetts. I live with my mom. I have a brother and my dad or stepdad or whatever. As I would find out, I have another father that I met a couple years ago. He ran a tire company. Basically, he knew he was dying of emphysema. He took my mom's car one day and drove off and disappeared. And then he was found a week later in the backseat of my mom's car, dead. So I don't really have a father in my life at that point. And then obviously wrestling's been in my life pretty much as soon as he passed at the age of 11. That's when I started watching wrestling. That's when I gravitated towards something because I didn't have anything to do. Like my older brother and me have always fought and really never got along on that kind of level. And then my mom, just trying to keep me happy, would just let me do whatever the fuck I wanted. So started watching wrestling. So then you fast forward a little bit, she meets some guy online and they end up hooking up. And then AOL chat rooms back then, that's where they met. And he lived in Missouri. So she picks up me and my brother and moves us all the way from Massachusetts to Missouri. And then he ends up draining my mom of all of her assets and money because he was just in it for my dad's pension. And then no pension for us.
Wow.
So then my mom always supported me. But as I got older, I realized my mom had a problem. I don't really talk about this much, and not a lot of people know this. People personally know that, like I joke around about it now, but as I was a teenager, I realized my mom had like an addiction problem. Didn't know what she was addicted to until I was in my 20s, and I realized she had a prescription pill problem. She has epilepsy, dementia, on top of all of this. So things were really weird and rough in my teenage years when it came to like having a parent around. So I pretty much did whatever the fuck I wanted. So like she supported me, but at the same time, I think she always thought like I would do better things. She just thought it was a phase. But like having support now from a mom and dad doesn't exist because I don't really have a mom and dad when it comes down to it, which like it's not a sob story. It's just part of my life. It's part of who I am. And like I have nothing to do with my mother now because she was at the point in her life where she didn't want to get help and I couldn't help her. And I don't need that toxic bullshit in my life. So I cut her out of my life a couple years ago.
You said that you did meet your biological father a couple of years back. How did that unfold?
It's as simple as I knew I had a biological father, and ironically, his last name is Lutz. What was my NWL name? J. Lutz. Funny, haha. That was my idea. So I get a text from my brother one day, and he's like, "Hey, I've been talking to our real dad, Chuck." And of course, I've never heard anything but bad about Chuck because my mom had always talked shit on him and said he was a terrible human being, which was complete fabrication of the truth. And he was actually a really good fucking dude. Really awesome. I actually went out there a couple years ago on Thanksgiving and spent the holidays with him. Awesome. Met a lot of my brothers, my stepbrothers, who knew. I look identical to my dad, and I have a brother, Cal, in Arizona. I look identical to him as well. It's crazy. So the only weird thing about that though is like I'm terrible with communication sometimes. So like Chuck's a great guy. He's got a great family. I have a stepmom, Fran. She's awesome. It's just I'm really bad about communicating, so I really don't have a communication with him other than once in a while on holidays a text saying, "Hey, have a great day," or happy Valentine or Christmas and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So like I met him a couple years ago. That was interesting because to hear his side of the story, telling me there was a point in my life when my mom actually was so messed up when me and my brother were like infants, which, I don't remember this, but I was told my dad with Chuck was like, I actually had to come take you from her house once because she left you and your brother there as infants. So I had to come take you for the night because she just left you guys there. So think about that. Like that plays into a lot of my psyche now, I think. Like obviously I deal with just about every kind of bullshit that most people deal with. People go through depression and bad times, but like you have different ways of like releasing that aggression or depression. And I really think professional wrestling is a way of me dealing with this shit without doing something stupid,
Right.
Like it's a way of me, like it's a way of my art. Like I wrestle because I love it and I love to entertain people. And if I can make someone feel good, it makes me feel good because I've been through a lot of times when I had nobody. I've been through a lot of bad things, but yet wrestling was always there for me. That's the one thing as a teenager and a grown up now, it's still there for me. So like that kind of plays into a lot of things as it reverts back to your question of like always willing to do anything I can to entertain, physical or not,
Yeah. You start wrestling in LWA or Gateway?
I started wrestling. My first professional wrestling match was in like 2003 for XWA, which was a one-show deal, and then LWA.
So you worked for LWA for a little bit. Did you ever work at Gateway?
Yes, actually, I worked for Gateway Championship Wrestling pretty much until they went out of business. And it's another situation to where right before the end of GCW, they were like, you can't work for both. And obviously I went, okay, I'm going back to my home promotion who helped train me. And like, that's where I was making my name. But I learned a lot at Gateway Championship Wrestling. And the best thing about Gateway was my relationship with Dingo. Like that's where that really formed.
At what point do you meet your first wife?
I meet my first wife in my probably early 20s. We were both working at a department store together and then started dating, and then that snowballed into obviously a long relationship and then finally getting married. So my first wife was there with me pretty much the whole time after 2006, let's say, for sure. Like she was there with wrestling the whole time.
Were there ever any difficulties with that? Was she always supportive?
At first, no. It was always supportive and like, you got to do what you got to do. It's your dream. But as the years went on, I found out from other people, like behind my back and stuff like that, it was more like, I wish you would just realize that, like, okay, like this is playtime. Like, get a real job. Like, I want to have a house with a white picket fence and kids. And I never knew that because I was in the situation. So it was one of those things where, like, at first everything was fine and dandy, and then obviously, divorce number one.
So what happened after the divorce? You just dove back into just wrestling, or?
I found out that like some shit had happened, and that's kind of why the divorce was so quick and fast tracked. So I was like, oh, okay, that all makes sense. So like all I could really do, and like at this point, I lived in South County in an apartment, and she upped and left. I should have saw it coming, but like I'm not very confrontational, and like I'm very passive aggressive, especially at that point in my life. Because I'm really bad at dealing with like bad situations, and I'm really bad with dealing with emotions. I just don't show them. It's over the last 3 years I've learned to actually show real emotion and like be able to like divvy out situations. So like as soon as she left, I just got on the road constantly and just wrestled. Like that's all I cared about, even if it wasn't financially gaining for me because I worked part-time at Party City at the time. So, like, I just basically wrestled, didn't care. I gave up. It was one of those things where, like, I was getting kicked out of my apartment, like, couldn't pay my bills, but I didn't give a shit because at that time in my life, I just gave up.
So LWA eventually becomes St. Louis Anarchy. You eventually go into Alton at Spalding Hall in 2012. Was it Circus Max? Was Circus Maximus the first?
I believe that was the first one there. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Because I'm looking at the rundown for that, and I see that you were wrestling as Gerald James at the time.
Yes.
And you were wrestling against Dan Walsh. So where did Gerald James come from?
Gerald James was basically Gary the Barn Owl and then Gary the Night Owl. And like we finally had to humanize Gary the Barn Owl or Gary the Night Owl. So that's when Dorian Victor and Josh Jackson started playing a role. Dorian Victor, my dad, Josh Jackson, my mom. We did a promo video of Dorian and Josh in their characters at my apartment teaching me how to read. It was hysterical. I don't know if it's online still. I wish it was. But it was like a really funny video. And then, you know, we played it at our shows in LWA because we had the projector screens back.
Yeah.
Yep. So basically, I think my first match as a human being was against El Generico in LWA as Gerald James. So then you fast forward, LWA goes away. Matt takes over. He's like, we got to do something. He starts St. Louis Anarchy. And my first match in Alton, I believe, was it a TLC match with Dan Walsh?
I believe it was, yeah.
Yeah. Yep, and then we basically go out there and proceed to beat the shit out of each other and bleed buckets. Like, oh man, like that's one of the situations where like he was bleeding so bad and then I was bleeding so bad we couldn't see. So like that's the same time where the week after the show we went to go clean the canvas and we were cleaning it and there was so much blood on it. A police officer had stopped by the car wash place we were washing it and asked, "Did you guys kill an animal?" We're like, "No, this is actually what happened." He goes, "Oh my God." Funny little side note, I guess. But yeah, so I believe me and Dan Walsh was the first time of Gary J and all.
Why did you go from Gerald James to Gary J then?
It was just the next step of like, I was Gary J everywhere else. So like, why would I go by Gerald James? So then just to make everything make sense and work, I just started going by Gary J.
Do you have like a favorite match during that particular title run?
Anytime I was in there with Davey Richards or Kyle O'Reilly, and there was actually a match in there with Sammy Callahan, which I kind of give credit to as like kind of really sparking like who Gary J is today.
I don't think you've mentioned it publicly, but you were considering retiring after you lost the belt to Matt Fitchett.
Yes.
So could you go into like your mindset with that?
I was getting really frustrated with wrestling. Me and the wife had talked a lot, and like she I'll just say her name. Brittany was very supportive. She was 100% there for me the whole time. And then, but there was times when I wasn't 100% there for her outside of the ring because of all the weird shit in my childhood, and me not knowing how to be emotional played a really big part into like why this marriage failed. You know, it takes both ways. She did shit too, but on my half, I'll take credit for the stupid shit I did and shouldn't have done. So basically, like at that point in my life, I was just really torn up. I didn't know what to do. And I really felt like, you know what, like I can't give this anymore. Like I can't do this anymore. Like I want to start life. I want to, you know, do things outside of wrestling. Because at that point, I've devoted my whole life to wrestling. And like I've loved it, but at the end of the day, like I want to know other things. I want to try other things. So like after I lost to Matt Fitchett, I grabbed that microphone with every intent to say goodbye. But like I just couldn't. I honestly just couldn't get the words out. I couldn't get, you know, hey, this is it, I'm done. So like that was like a small little weird like hiccup in the road, and then it just never happened. I never stopped.
You said you never felt comfortable or didn't feel you had your footing as a wrestler until the 800-day title run. And you know, I'm doing the math here. You started wrestling in 2003. You didn't get the belt until, or you didn't get this third title reign until 2013. That's 10 years in, roughly, that you didn't feel comfortable.
Yeah, you know, that's 100% true. it's one of those things where like the title reign really helped me, because during that title reign, I was working some top name talent from all over the world, not just the US, the fucking world. I got the opportunities to get in there and fight the best. It's either a sink or swim situation there. And funny now, Tommy Peterson, cheap plug for him, he's been putting out the YouTube links lately, you know, free match every day. And a lot of those have been mine. Recently, I just realized, I was like, holy shit, me and David Richards. Wow, me and Roderick Strong. It's like, you have to be on your A game to get in the ring with them, or they will fucking eat you alive. It's during that time I realized, hey, I'm not so bad at this, or I'm pretty good at this. And then that's when I kind of realized, I think I'm probably one of the hardest fucking hitters in the country. You know, like, I have something here. I can kind of mold this and brand it, as you say. So, like, that title run and the confidence that the company gave me is the reason that I am here today when it comes to St. Louis Anarchy. And really, I brought that confidence everywhere. Wherever I get booked or wherever I go, like, that's what you're getting.
You dropped the belt to Fitchett in 2016. 2017 rolls around and NWL starts. Do you feel that the run that you had in Anarchy prepared you to be a contracted wrestler?
I mean, like, yes, it's not like I was full-time contracted. I was just part-time, but it gave me the opportunity to do a different character with Jay Lutz. It gave me an opportunity to learn television and the way Matt and Chris Goff wrote it. Like, I'd follow them around and learn camera angles and like the way they would shoot promos, because I love wrestling to the point where, like, obviously in-ring is great, but I like to learn everything about it. I like to be around it. I like to talk stories. I like to learn like how they shoot angles and how they do camera stuff and they do cuts. I like to be around production. It's one of those things where, like, I love everything about it. So NWL was a great time because, yes, I was getting paid because I was a part-time guy there. I was getting paid well. I got to do really fun house shows. Like, their house show loops were awesome, and they were drawing really good. I got to do their TV in Kansas, and then eventually Gary J was there because, you know, the whole major situation, which is a whole different thing, not my problem. Yeah. But, you know, Gary J was now in NWL. So now Gary J was doing all of this. So it's one of those things where I learned so much being there for the short time it was around.
I think there's still plenty of matches of NWL that are available on YouTube, so people can see the sort of work you were doing. The Jay Lutz character, people had criticisms about that, having seen what you could do before.
Yes.
And so it would be a bit of a culture shock or a culture clash to just see you go from Gary J to Jay Lutz and the way that was being handled. Once the reins got taken off, so to speak, and you got to be Gary J, it was the same person you were in Spalding Hall, just in other buildings.
Oh, absolutely.
And on television, in front of a giant screen.
The Majortron 3000.
Right.
Yeah, I love that thing. I wish I had that in my house. You kind of mentioned how, like, the reins were off, and, like, when Gary J started doing stuff there, like the tail run of Gary J and NWL, like, I was actually asked not to do stupid things. And it's not because they didn't want me to get over or they didn't want me to succeed. They just didn't want me to get hurt. They're like, I'm really worried about you getting hurt. I was like, hey, I appreciate, you know, your concern, but I got this. I know what I'm doing. So, like, it's kind of just a little side story. A lot of people don't know about it. It's like they kind of asked me not to, like, do dumb things or do stupid bumps. But at the same time, it's like, that's kind of who I am sometimes. And, like, I feel if that works for what's going on during the match, I'm going to do it because I want to entertain people. Like, that deep down inside, I'm an entertainer.
During the close of NWL and then the restoration of Anarchy, divorce number 2 happens. How does that affect you as Anarchy is, you know, trying to get back on its feet again? Matt Jackson and other people are looking to Gary to be a guy at the top of the card, be a leader, both in the ring and in the locker room. Like, how does that affect you there?
No, it's okay. Hey, it's just Sam Bigelow. Hey, how are you? Okay, I was just setting your alarms so that way you don't miss Anarchy Game Night, which is Mondays at 6 p.m. So I got you taken care of. So just in case you didn't know, so at Anarchy Game Night, we do wrestling trivia, office trivia. We even have Wheel of Anarchy. So it's pretty exciting. And I mean, all your Anarchy superstars are going to be on there. So I mean, I think you should definitely check it out, which is why I'm helping you out. So, hey, now just go back to sleep because, right now, I have 250 other wrestling fans to go see. So, I think I'm just gonna skedaddle. So just don't you worry about that. I was here, okay? Okay. Oh, wait, oh my God, is this your bear? I have one too. I call him Mr. Snuggle. Boundaries. Because I did sneak it. Okay, remember, Anarchy Game Night, Monday, 6 p.m. Okay.
That'll do it, folks, for this edition of Inside Anarchy. Join us here in 2 weeks as we conclude our interview series with Gary J. In the meantime, hit like, hit subscribe, hit follow. St. Louis Anarchy on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter. I'm Sean Orleans. We'll see you again next time.